In an attempt to silence conspiracy theories forever, Donald Trump inadvertently unveiled the darkest secret of the Cold War. He meant to prove there were no UFO secrets, yet within the massive archives, a single 47-page document emerged, transforming an effort to calm the world into the most disturbing warning in the history of mankind. Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm the host of the Scary Mysteries Videos channel, where darkness and mystery come to life in every object that becomes the subject of our story. Well, here we are, back on air. For those joining us for the first time, let me remind you that in the previous 2 episodes, we had one of our best internet researchers, Leo Kaufman, as our guest. He told us about the files from the CIA's Stargate project, declassified in 2017, which investigated paranormal phenomena and explored the possibility of using remote viewing and extrasensory perception for intelligence purposes. The project was ultimately deemed a failure, but our focus wasn't on Stargate itself, but on the intelligence data that led to its creation. Reports obtained by the CIA at the time indicated that the Soviet Union was allocating significant funds to so-called psychotronic research and actively studying phenomena beyond the bounds of traditional science. So, Leo shared with us several truly shocking stories from these documents. Be sure to check out the previous episodes to appreciate the incredible scale of the discoveries made by Soviet scientists. They themselves, as I understand, were shocked by what they managed to uncover. Anyway, a link to the playlist with the previous episodes will appear in the top right corner of the screen right now. But today, Leo, you've brought a story of a completely different kind. Am I right in understanding that it has nothing to do with the mentioned project?
Mark, greetings to you and our viewers. You're absolutely right. While working with the Stargate archives, I stumbled upon one document that has no relation to it at all. It's a completely separate, isolated story. And the most astonishing thing about it is how it even came to light. You could even say its discovery is a kind of irony of fate. And it all started, as strange as it may sound, with Donald Trump.
With Trump? How is he involved here?
Remember, during his 2024 presidential campaign, he took an extremely categorical stance on the issue of any evidence of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, and publicly stated that aliens are nothing more than fiction. To back up his words with action, after being elected, he signed an executive order mandating the declassification of absolutely all federal archives that contained even the slightest mention of extraterrestrial activity. Officially, his goal was boring and noble, to show Americans that the government isn't hiding anything and that there simply are no real proofs of aliens' existence in its possession.
Trump wanted to put an end to conspiracy theories once and for all.
Exactly. But something went wrong. In this massive array of data, among thousands of pages of routine reports on weather balloons and strange lights in the sky, there was one single document that completely contradicts what Trump claimed. You see, in trying to prove that the government has no secrets about aliens, he may have unwittingly revealed to the world one of the most compelling and alarming pieces of evidence of such contact in the entire history of observations.
Leo, just this backstory alone sounds like a sensation. So what was in it?
This substantial document contains a full 47 pages. Inside are detailed diagrams of a Soviet secret training ground in the Kirovohrad region, medical reports on the people who were affected there, photographs from the scene taken 3 days after the incident, and, most importantly, an analytical memo prepared by CIA employees assessing the potentially catastrophic consequences of using unknown technologies. The story itself, as laid out in it, starts quite ordinarily. Soviet Union, summer. Anti-aircraft missile troops exercises are underway. 25 soldiers on the parade ground. 2 of them, Privates Petrenko and Sidorenko, decide to seek shelter from the heat in the shade of a military truck. Their comrades, the other 23 people, remain on the open, sun-drenched square. And then, right in the middle of this routine, an unidentified object appears in the sky, directly above them.
They observed a UFO in broad daylight, right during the exercises? That's a rare stroke of luck. Any ufologist would sell their soul for such an opportunity.
I agree with you. The document states that it was a silvery disk about 15 meters in diameter, which hovered completely silently about 200 meters above them. The reaction followed immediately. The unit commander, Lieutenant Kovalenko, reacted according to regulations and without hesitation gave the order, "Air target, prepare to fire." The senior gunner, an experienced sergeant named Bondarenko, looked through the sights and reported that the object didn't resemble either Soviet or American technology. Nevertheless, an order is an order, and he pulled the trigger.
Wait, they shot at it? And shot it down? Bold move. I couldn't do that.
Yes, the missile hit the target dead on. The object flashed brightly and crashed to the ground about half a kilometer from their position. The 23 soldiers, led by the lieutenant, immediately rushed to the crash site, and Petrenko and Sidorenko, those two from behind the truck, luckily for them, stayed put. As a result, they were the only surviving witnesses to what happened next. 5 beings emerged from the smoking wreckage.
And what did they look like?
Their description in the document looks damn stereotypical. Large heads, fragile bodies, eyes like bottomless black voids. But there's one nuance. For you and me, this is a cliched image from Hollywood movies. However, Soviet soldiers couldn't have seen such things, since that kind of cinema was banned in the Union. Probably that's why they didn't call in the men in black, but instead surrounded these strange beings themselves, keeping them at gunpoint. Lieutenant Kovalenko shouted an order to surrender, but the beings paid him no attention whatsoever. Instead, they approached each other closely and began to merge into one.
What do you mean, merge?
In his testimony, Sidorenko came up with what I think is a very accurate comparison. According to him, they flowed together into one point, like drops of mercury. 5 separate figures turned into a single sphere, which began to pulsate and glow with a bright, silvery light of increasing intensity. At that moment, apparently, the lieutenant's nerves gave out, and he ordered to fire. However, nothing came of it, because the bullets, as stated in the report, simply passed through the sphere without causing it any harm. And then the sphere exploded, but it wasn't a fiery explosion, but a super powerful silent flash of pure white light, so bright that Petrenko and Sidorenko, who were 200 meters from the epicenter in the saving shade of the truck, were completely blinded for several minutes. Later, Petrenko recalled that he instinctively closed his eyes, but the light seemed to penetrate right through his closed eyelids. After that, absolute silence ensued.
And what did they see when their vision returned?
They saw their comrades. All 23 people were standing in the exact same places and poses in which the flash had caught them. The lieutenant with his pistol raised, the sergeant with his rifle at his shoulder, the soldiers in combat stances. But they were no longer human. They had turned into gray stone statues. Expressions of horror and complete bewilderment were frozen on their faces.
Stone statues? Like, literally?
Literally. The report says that Petrenko and Sidorenko, overcoming the shock, approached and touched one of them. To the touch, it was rough, porous stone. But, and this is the creepiest detail in the entire document, the stone was warm. It retained the warmth of a living human body, as if life hadn't ended but had been somehow incomprehensibly paused. Of course, by evening, the training ground was already swarming with KGB officers, military medics, and scientists. What the analyses showed didn't fit into any framework. The molecular structure of the soldiers' bodies had been completely altered. Their organic tissue had been replaced by an inorganic compound, calcium carbonate, or simply limestone. But at the cellular level, in this new structure, there was still somehow residual vital activity preserved.
Oh God. What happened to them, to these statues, and to those 2 who survived?
The statues were loaded into special hermetic containers and transported to one of the secret research institutes near Moscow. Since then, no one has seen them, although the document has some indications that they are still stored in those underground vaults to this day. As for Petrenko and Sidorenko, they were held in isolation for several months, interrogated, and forced to undergo countless tests. In the end, they were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements regarding state secrets. However, in 1991, when the Soviet Union was already falling apart, they managed to escape to the West and tell their story to the CIA. And this file ends with a bolded recommendation for all American military departments. Under no circumstances should aggression be shown toward such objects. The response, as this incident showed, can be instantaneous, unpredictable, and absolutely irreversible.
What happened to the survivors, Petrenko and Sidorenko? What was their fate?
Their fate is quite tragic. Journalists managed to track down Petrenko only in 2019. He was hiding under a false name in Canada, leading a quiet life as a simple locksmith. But in conversation, he admitted that that day never ended for him. Every night in his dreams, he returns to that training ground and sees the frozen faces of his comrades in horror. Sidorenko's fate was even sadder. He died of cancer in 2015. But shortly before his death, he recorded a video message. In it, he said that after that flash of light, he physically felt something irreversibly change inside him. He remained convinced until the end of his days that part of him died that day, along with the rest of his comrades.
Leo, this just gives me chills. What a horrifying story.
And that's not all. In 2021, a group of urban explorers managed to infiltrate that long-abandoned training ground. At the incident site, they found a perfectly even circle of scorched earth, about 50 meters in diameter. And in the center of this circle, there were 23 depressions in the ground. Each one exactly replicated the outlines and sizes of a human body in a combat stance, as if those very statues had never been removed, as if they had stood in one place for decades, and slowly, millimeter by millimeter, sunk into the earth, leaving these imprints behind.
It seems this story raises a very important question. If we encounter something like this again, is it worth shooting first?
I think now we know the answer. Sometimes it's better to just step aside.
Another incredible and truly frightening story from the declassified archives. Thank you for sharing it with us. Am I right that next time we're returning to our main topic and we'll continue digging into the Stargate project files?
Absolutely correct. And believe me, I've already found something there that deserves the closest attention.
We'll be eagerly awaiting your new finds. And that's all for today. Thanks for being with us. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of our investigations. See you soon.
Bye. All the best.
Subscribe to Scary Mysteries videos right now. Immerse yourself in the unknown and become part of the revelation. Uncover the hidden